This episode, oh my god, just the scene with Krista, or in this case now we can call her Historia, and Ymir, and when Historia was on top of the tower, and she's like, what are you doing? Live your life for yourself, don't die for me, don't die sitting there trying to protect this tower, rip the tower down. And when you see Ymir just jump on the side of the tower, and just start ripping it apart, and you just see the way the camera, just the way it pans around the tower, and you just see Ymir just grabbing pieces of the tower, slinging it at the Titans, and just the entire screen is rotating. I'm like, yo, like, no, like, oh my god, like, I knew this was happening. Like I've said many times, I'm a manga reader, but oh my god, just seeing these scenes animated and the way it's done, it just, oh my god, like, it blows my mind away. It really does. And I know many fans are upset because this series is going to be like only 12 episodes like Season 2 is, but can we all just admit, at the very least, Season 2 has been quality. Like, it has had a lot of good art and animation, voice acting, music, everything. It's a tremendous project, and there was a lot of weight probably on the entire staff that was working on Season 2, because you gotta imagine, after all the popularity Season 1 got, how big the fan base grew, obviously that's gonna be a lot of pressure on, you know, the animators and everyone that's working on the series for Season 2, and it just, I'm proud of the entire team. Wit Studios, you're doing a very good job with Attack on Titan. Like, oh my god, I thought the previous episodes were good. Like, that was just the feelings you're capturing with, like, the horror tone or just despair. Just, that was some great stuff I saw in previous episodes. But the way this episode was done was so inspirational, but also just seeing the way Ymir is to Historia and, like, their connection as people. Very beautiful episode. So, basically, to kind of summarize this episode, it gives details on Ymir's character and also Historia. Well, Krista, if you still don't call her by Historia. Pretty much, we get some characterization, kind of how these two characters grew closer, and kind of why Ymir acts like she does towards Historia, but also why Historia acts like she does towards Ymir. And through this, you know, flashback, like, majority of the episode is centered on a flashback, we see to where Historia and Ymir are stuck in a snowstorm with another person, and they're trying to help out Daz and all that, getting him to safety, but, you know, the way it's looking, the way he's injured and all that, he's not gonna make it. He's gonna freeze to death before they even get down the mountain, which is understandable. With how bad the weather was and all that, it makes sense that he's probably going to die. And when Ymir was talking about, hey, you know, we should probably just leave him if we want to save ourselves, it's cruel. I'm not even gonna lie, it's cruel what Ymir was saying. It's really mean and messed up, but at the end of the day, you gotta factor all of this in. I mean, if you saw the condition of the weather, obviously they're not gonna make it. If they would have continued to drag the person down the mountain and all that, taking that slow pace, they would have froze to death. It was just GG for them. So, even though Ymir said some pretty messed up stuff, it was grounded in realism, because that's just the cold, harsh reality of life, and she was saying the truth. But also, with the way Ymir was talking to Historia, we got some interesting characterization, and this is probably going to blow everybody's mind. Like, if you're anime only, and you saw this episode, you're going to be like, yo, this kind of explains a lot about, you know, Historia's character, but also, just seeing what type of character she is, it makes her very fascinating. And I was waiting to see what anime-onlys think of the scenes that we saw in this episode. And so I want to ask, anime-onlys, how do you feel about the other side of Historia's character? Besides just Ymir, even though it was a Ymir-focused episode, how do you feel about that side of Historia and how she kind of wants to die? She was just walking a path to where she just wanted to die and all that and be kind of like a hero but just die. How do you feel about that side of her? And how she was pretty much going to risk her life but just go die alone by herself in the middle of the snow, and that was like her entire objective in the first place. That's why she was telling Ymir to go on ahead and just do whatever. And with the way Ymir walked up to her, she basically called Historia out. Like, I know what you're doing. Like, if you really wanted to save this dude, you would definitely try to hide it a little bit better. It's too obvious that you're not really caring. You're just wanting to try to die a hero's death. Look like you're trying to be a hero and then die. And that's kind of what Historia was doing. Like, imagine this, okay? She would have died. It's obvious she would have died, and so would have Ymir if they would have continued walking. But if she would have died, like, trying to drag this dude to safety, and when they finally found her body, it would show that she was trying to help him out. She didn't leave him behind, she was dragging him, and she fell over and died. That would show that she was trying to be a hero, she was trying to be a good person, and that's kind of what Ymir was saying. She was calling out Historia for that aspect with her personality, and it really shed some light on maybe what type of life Historia had before, you know, the events of the series. So yeah, very fascinating stuff. Now, speaking of Ymir, Ymir's character is kind of shrouded in mystery, because even though we got some characterization for her, we found out that she's very similar to Historia in some way, because it is revealed when she's talking to Historia, like, I've gotten a second chance at my life, you've gotten a second chance at your life, you know, I didn't throw my name away, but you threw your name away, you were going by Krista, but, you know, your real name Historia, and Ymir is pretty much saying, like, we're very similar, kind of our backgrounds are very similar, and it makes you wonder exactly who is Ymir, like, what is her connection, what type of role does she have to play in the story. But on top of that, though, you gotta imagine this. She also is a Titan shifter, and we know that, obviously, Reiner and Bert know about her at being a Titan shifter, or being a Titan in general, because they saw her in the past, because of the flashback we got with him. And when you see Reiner, you know, just grabbing Historia, trying to save her and all that before she fell off the tower, he actually didn't even realize he was harming Historia. And we know how much Reiner really cares about Historia, which really emphasizes that point, and how deep in thought Reiner was when he was thinking about whatever, you know, Ymir is. Because think about it. Last episode, Reiner, he was like, I gotta marry her. Like, he was just blushing and all that. He wanted to be with, you know, Krista because he liked her. And we know he really cares deeply for her. He kind of has, like, a mini crush on her. And because of that, we know he wouldn't put, you know, Historia in harm. He wouldn't want to go out of his way to harm her. But for him to actually hold her like that, harm her, it shows how deep in thought he was. Like, the seriousness of the situation, and how he was feeling about, you know, Ymir revealing this Titan form. So I like the emphasis on that scene and showing just how out of it Reiner was at that given moment, and just how shocked he was. Because, I mean, look, from what we saw from the flashback, Reiner's friend and Bert's friend, apparently he got grabbed and just eaten right in front of him, and there you go. So it really brings a lot of questions up. What's going on with, you know, Ymir? Now, with all that being said, though, let's talk about Ymir's stance. Even though we saw the flashback with Reiner, we don't really know whose side she's on. Clearly, she is kind of out for herself, from what we got from inside of her head, but where did she kind of originate from? Is she an enemy, or is she very similar to Eren, like she just started having Titan shifting abilities? That's the question we need to wonder right now, because we don't know if she's like the female Titan from, you know, Season 1, or if she's like, you know, like on Eren's side. We have no idea what side Ymir is on, and that's kind of the mystery of this episode. You're wondering, is she really a good person or a bad person? I mean, she did go out of her way and risk, you know, Titan shifting from what we saw to get down the cliff to be able to save the dude from freezing to death. So we do know she does have compassion for the people within inside the wall. So it doesn't seem necessarily like she is a bad person. Most likely, because of her personality and the way she acts, she's just very secretive. She just doesn't want to talk about anything. She keeps everything to herself, and most likely because of this, she's just been hiding her power all along. Even though she's a good person, she doesn't want to reveal it because it would get her into a lot of public eye. She would get noticed a lot, and then it would cause probably a lot of problems. And so, also because of her background probably being very similar to whatever's going on with Historia, we know that Ymir probably has something very important towards the plot. So, yeah. Anyways, the action scene with Ymir going in and fighting the Titans. Oh my god, like, that was so good. Oh my god. Like, just seeing her go in, just ripping apart these Titans and all that, and you just see the way this action was done. I'm like, I needed this. I needed this. Now, don't get me wrong. I've said many times, I don't need action to get me pumped up and all that and to really make a good episode, but I gotta admit, I do like action when I see it, and that was just so fun to watch, just seeing her go in, the music in the background, and speaking of that music, oh my god, that was such good music. When, like I've said earlier on in this episode review, when Historia was sitting on top of the towers, like, break it down, and the music started playing, that music in that scene, probably, oh my god, like, that was one of the best times to play a song, especially with the way that was done. So just, job well done, Attack on Titan. Job well done, the entire team that worked on this episode. You did tremendous work. Cannot wait to see what you do next. Pretty damn hyped up for next week's episode. I love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.